So normally we open up our videos with a joke, but nobody wants to hear a daddy joke. So Maddie, do you have a Maddie joke for us?
Yes.
Go for it.
What are the strongest days of the week?
I don't know.
Saturday and Sunday. The rest are weekdays.
Welcome back, Deep Review TV viewers. Chris Nichols here. We've got another Tamron lens review here for you today. As usual, they have a crazy name, so I'll try to get through it. We've got the Tamron 17-70 2.8 Di3A VCRXD, which I will absolutely shorten when we're talking about this in the future. Now this is a 2.8 lens, maximum aperture all the way through its zoom range, very compact, very versatile, but we don't have a cropped Sony body to use it on, so instead we've got an A7R4. We're shooting that cropped, we're still getting 26 megapixels, and they are good pixels. Now I could absolutely see this lens being a very compact general purpose lens or like a travel photography lens. So as usual, we often like to take little road trips. We're actually exploring the town of Okotoks today in southern Alberta. We're in the old part of the city, but I also did use this for some family stuff, Calgary Zoo as well. So you got some variety to show on this lens. Now I happen to really like 24-105 f4 full frame lenses. You know, the Sony, the Canon, the Panasonic, they're all very nice. They tend to be optically quite good, and they're versatile while still being compact. And so this feels a lot like that kind of lens on an APS-C body. I'm not quite getting a 24mm wide angle equivalent, but it's pretty close. We're basically getting the same f4 equivalent depth of field with this lens being 2.8 on an APS-C body. And this does feel just like a scaled down 24-105. It's quite compact. 67mm filter thread, which we often see on a lot of these Tamron lenses. Now the build quality seems very similar to the other Tamron lenses we've tested. Decent, but very lightweight. This is going to be 524 grams, not bad at all. However, I am going to say there's no buttons on this lens, and that seems strange. We don't have a vibration control button. There's no autofocus manual focus control button, so that's all going to have to be done through the body, and that does always slow you down a little bit. Now the Tamron 17-70 is using a stepping style motor, not the new modern fancy linear motors which drive lenses faster. However, we're not talking heavy glass elements, and I was actually very impressed with how quickly this lens focuses near to far. I really didn't feel like I ever had efficiency there. Okay, let's talk about the bokeh on this lens. Now, Jordan wanted me to say that the bokeh is broca, but it's just not that bad. It's not great though either. Let's put it into context. So here's the positives. First off, I didn't find that I was getting that much cat's eye in the corners. I mean, you see a little bit, kind of goes away when you stop down to f4, and it actually maintains a really nice round shape, even as you stop down. I was impressed by that. My main issue is that it's pretty busy inside the bokeh. I mean, onion rings are concentric. I would even call it onion rings. It's like if all the onion rings were in a box, like deep fried together, and you pull one out and there's like 5 more stuck to it. That's more what it's like. So not very pleasing to look at as far as the inside of the bokeh goes, but nice round corners, minimal cat's eyeing. It's fine. Okay, time to talk about things like chromatic aberrations and flare. Now, we don't often worry about lateral chromatic aberration anymore, the kind of color fringing you get around contrasted areas, but we do worry about longitudinal chromatic aberration, loca, and that's where you see a distinct color shift in the background and foreground out of focus from each other. Here, we do get a cyan magenta split, so that you can't really get rid of in post very easily. It's not terrible on this lens, it's manageable, but it is definitely there. Now, the Tamron 17-70, it has some flare issues. I mean, it's there. Now, first off, they do provide a cute little compact lens hood, which does a great job of blocking off bright light sources like the sun if they're outside of the shot. But once you get the sun in the shot there, you're going to notice some ghosting along that axis. You can see it, you know, it's kind of a fairly intrusive cherry red color, and it's hard to get rid of. It's not terrible. It's not like it's taking your artwork, throwing it into a dungeon and locking it up and starving it for 3 weeks, but it might take your artwork and, I don't know, make mean comments behind its back to your friends and embarrass you at your next exhibition. Does that make sense?
No.
Now for manual focus work, like close-up stuff or video, the manual focus on this lens, the ring does feel kind of loosey-goosey and very light. There's not a lot of dampening, but that's pretty typical of a lens like this. However, for videographers, there's almost zero breathing on this lens, whether you're at 70 millimeters or 17 millimeters. You know, your focal length basically stays the same. So that can make this a very appealing video lens. All right, let's look at sharpness. So first off, we're gonna take a look at the 17 mil focal length on this lens. I mean, I found it to be very good. I mean, even wide open at 2.8, we're getting nice acceptable sharpness. I didn't notice that much difference from 2.8 to 5.6. Going to the corners, again, very decent sharpness. I didn't notice much difference between the center and the corners. Overall, very acceptable performance here at the wide angle. And for our test at 70 millimeters, we got these nice detailed shingles at a good distance. Again, center sharpness here at 2.8, I don't know, I found it quite acceptable. I think it's very good. And stopping down to 5.6, some improvement again, but really it's already delivering pretty good results. Going to the corners, it's a similar story that we found. So I'm finding the sharpness is consistent from the wide angle to the telephoto. And keep in mind here as well, we're pushing this on 26 megapixels as opposed to 24. We got a slight difference there. I think the resolution of this lens is totally fine for APS-C sensors. Overall, very pleased with this lens as far as that goes. So should you buy the Tamron 17 to 70? I think, first thing to remember, there's a lot of A's, 6000, 61, 63, 4, 5, 6s out there, There's a lot of these cameras, and your choices for lenses are kind of limited in this general purpose range. The 16 to 50 kit lens is compact, but it's garbage. There's a Sony Zeiss 16 to 70 f4. It was an optical improvement, but not by that much, and it was quite pricey. Your only other option is the quite expensive 16 to 55 2.8, an awesome lens, but not to fit everybody's budget. And this is where I think the 17 to 70 shines. It's a really nice price point, and it's a very sharp lens. So sharpness aside, I think it's the other issues we've talked about that are really gonna be the deciding factor for you. If you're a more professional photographer that wants to have better controlled issues with flare and chromatic aberrations or cleaner looking bokeh, then I think the 16 to 55 2.8 is the way that you have to go. But a lot of people are just enthusiastic photographers that want to get softer backgrounds for portraits, things like that. And as long as you're able to deal with the issues we've talked about, or you don't mind having specular highlights that have that distracting, busy look, well, I think the Tamron 1770 does make a lot of sense. And here's another important factor too. This lens has vibration control, and there are a lot of A6000 type bodies out there that don't have that built into the body. This would make a lot of sense, and even the Sony 1655 2.8 doesn't have any sort of in-lens stabilization. All right, so thanks for joining us. Check out dpreview.com. You can see our sample galleries there. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because if you haven't heard already, if we get to 300,000 by Valentine's Day, we give Jordan the best Valentine's Day gift of all. We force him to use a terrible camera that we get to choose. Leave your suggestions for cameras you want to see him shoot in the comments below. See you guys soon.